Hi, today I'm gonna review Outside, the poems of John Gould Fletcher, um, from this book here. I first found out about him when I was looking at like modernist poets more than just T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound that everyone knows, and I don't know. I just started reading all of them. I read Edna St. Vincent Millay, George Dillon, all that. But when I got to John Gould Fletcher, he was better than most of those. And he was friends with all those people. You know, he lived in England for a lot of his life because his father forced him to go to school for business, but his father died. I think it was his senior year, and he dropped out immediately. So yeah, he probably wasn't too fond of college there. But then he moved to England and got into like the Ezra Pound circle of poets. You know, Amy Lowell, Ezra Pound. They helped him a lot. And then that's when he started publishing his stuff, like 1913, his first books. He actually simultaneously published, I think, four at once, four or five. But how I first saw his stuff was online on Project Gutenberg. Uh, he has the Irradiation, Sand and Spray, published in 1915. That's the first one, then Goblins and Pagodas. And the Irradiations only had one download, and that was me from Project Gutenberg, but I think it has more now. So, and then I ended up really liking that, and I bought his book, this Selected Poems from the Arkansas University. And I'm just looking for one from his first section that really struck me. There was one that did. And one interesting thing about John Gould Fletcher is he never really stayed in one group of poets. He started out pretty much on his own in college, writing a lot, going to symphonies and stuff. Then he got in with Ezra Pound, Amy Lowell, and then he eventually ended up with the Southern Agrarians, as they called them, like the fugitive poets. John Crow Ransom, Robert Penn Warren, all those. And those are my favorites. Like as a group, Robert Penn Warren and John Crow Ransom are perfect. But here's one good one. It's like a little joke poem, but it's called Clown's Song. Who can speak the crimes of rhyming, said a poet, well he knew what this vile and senseless chiming tempts a singer's soul to do. How it alters his rude power, nature's firstborn rhythm vast, into trifles for an hour, cheap and vulgar, first to last. How it changes his swift dancing, pause and whirl of tireless feet, into capers unentrancing, cut for pennies on the street. Or if all the gold of Indies could not tempt him to such shame, deeper yet the poet's sin lies, he is jingling but for fame. Idle maid of gilded paper, crammed inside with chaff and bran, fit to dolt the foolish gaper, fit only to be kicked by man. Whether gold or fame, no matter which I serve, it is the same, for my castanets I clatter, balsam vulgar song of shame. In a voice that cracks and falters, and I tumble on my head, in this garb that nothing alters, clown costume of white and red. People laugh and think me funny, deem my face a mirthful sight. When I go round for the money, then they scatter left and right. So I thought that was a little funny one. And then here's another little short one that he writes. He doesn't. This isn't representative of him. He doesn't write many short, funny ones, but This one's titled The Truth of the Matter. Life goes on, though it should not. The poet sings, understood not. I can die, but I would not. So, I like that one too. And I'll find one from his Irradiation, Sand and Spray. At the end of his 4 or 5 books, in the first ones he published, he did some translations from Chinese and Japanese, in inspirations too. I don't really like him that much. And the one that really struck me most was number 25 of the Irradiations, number 25. It goes like this. As I wandered over the city through the night, I saw many strange things, but I have forgotten all, except one painted face. Gaudy, shameless night orchid, heavy flushed, sticky with narcotic perfume. There was something in you which made me prefer you above all the feeble forget-me-nots of the world. You were neither burnt out nor pallid. There was plain, coarse, vulgar meaning in every line of you, and no make-believe. You were at least alive, when all the rest were but puppets of the night. So I like that one. And I really also like number 30. It's not in this book, unfortunately, but the one line from number 30 that really struck me is, everything is dissolved in the cold acid of death. Which that's a really good line. And then the Irradiations are very good. They're all on Project Gutenberg for free, and they're all worth reading. Really, just going through them one by one. But I'll go on to his Sand and Spray. That's the second part of that book of poems he published in 1915. And he structures it, it's called A Sea Symphony, and he structures it with sort of a, symphony-like. So the first one's called, it says 1, The Gale, and it's subtitled with Allegro Furioso, they do in symphonies. But the one I really like particularly is, it's in movement 3, variations, and it's called The Ground Swell, and it's Marcia Funèbre, funeral march. And that's one of my favorite pieces by Chopin too, so it goes well, but I'll go ahead and read it. With heavy, doleful clamor, hour on hour and day on day, the muddy groundswell lifts and breaks and falls and slides away. The cold and naked wind runs shivering over the sands. Salt are its eyes, open its mouth, its brow wet, blue its hands. It finds naught but a starving gull whose wing trail at its side, and the dull, battered wreckage, gray jetsam of the tide. The lifeless, chilly, slaty sky with no blue hope is lit. A rusty, waddling steamer plants a smudge of smoke on it. Stupidly stand the factory chimneys staring over all. The gray grows ever denser, and soon the night will fall. The wind runs sobbing over the bench and over... Sorry, I heard the noise over there. It messed up my concentration. The wind runs sobbing over the beach and touches with its hands straw, chaff, old bottles, broken crates, the litter of the sands. Sometimes the bloated carcass of a dog or fish is found, sometimes the rumpled feathers of a seagull shot or drowned. Last year it was an unknown man who came up from the sea. There is his grave hard by the dunes, under a stunted tree. With heavy doleful clamor, hour on hour and day on day, the muddy groundswell lifts and breaks and falls and slides away. And one thing I really like that he does well, it's another thing that Paul Celan does well, is the repetition. You know how it starts with heavy doleful clamor, hour on hour and day on day, and that's how it ends. For some reason that always gets me. He does it in the next poem too. It starts out, silently fell the snow on the waters, and then the last stanza starts, silently fell the snow on the waters. And you know that the poem by Paul Celan, that's extremely good, Death Fugue, Todesfuge, Schwarze Milch der Frühe, Black milk of daybreak, we drink you in the morning, we drink you in the evening, we drink you at night, we drink and we drink, the repetition of that. It's good. And then the one I liked that I was just reading while I was at school today, it's called The Backstairs. In the afternoon, when no one is in the house, I suddenly hear dull dragging feet go fumbling down those dark back stairs that climb up twisting, as if they wanted no one to see them. Beating a dirge upon the bare planks, I hear those feet and the creak of a long locked door. My mother often went up and down those selfsame stairs from the room where by the window she would sit all day and listlessly look on the world that had destroyed her. She would go down in the evening to the room where she would sleep, or rather not sleep, but all night lie staring fiercely at the ceiling. In the afternoon, when no one is in the house, I suddenly hear dull dragging feet beating out their futile tune, up and down those dark back stairs, but there is no one in the shadows. He does his repetition thing there too. It's really good. And then he has some symphonies called Blue Symphony. He has a green symphony, a white symphony, and I really like classical music, so these poems probably affect me more than other people, but it's really good. I just love the whole feeling of it. But it seems like he was never really a popular. Seems like he was never really a popular poet during his lifetime, because for a while I was reading a lot about Conrad Aiken, and I was reading his interview with the Paris Review, what do they call it, the art of something? Anyway. And it said, the interviewer asked Conrad Aiken, or Aiken, however you say it, they asked, out of the poets you knew when you were young, who do you think should have been more popular? Or who do you want to preserve? And one of them, he said, was John Gould Fletcher. Conrad always felt that John Gould Fletcher never got his due. And that seems correct to me, because I've never really understood it. People are drawn to Ezra Pound and T.S. Eliot when, as far as I can tell, they're not nearly as good as many other modernists. I would say T.S. Eliot is better than Ezra Pound, but still, I think at the very least, Hart Crane is as good as them, at the very least. And then you have people like John Gould Fletcher. I like John Crow Ransom a lot. I'll probably make a video on him. And all the good Greek of Plato, I lack my roast beef and potato. But yeah, I never really understood people's obsession with T.S. Eliot and Ezra Pound, especially young people, because they don't get all the allusions and references that are borderline name dropped in all of their poems. It's like an 18-year-old reading Finnegan's Wake and acting as if they enjoy it, apart from just the nonsense gibberish, which is kind of a silly reason to like a book, in my opinion. But yeah, so I mean, if on Project Gutenberg he has his 2 books of poems, the Irradiations, Sand and Spray Symphony, which is a very good introduction. And then there's also Goblins and Pagodas. And I think in the Goblins and Pagodas he had more Oriental inspired work. So, but he ended up, I think he was 62, and he ended up killing himself in a pond in Arkansas. So I guess that's that's that. But he should be more well read. You can get this book online. It's pretty cheap, all things considered. I think I got it for $15, and it's just selected poems, and it's put together really well. Gives a good introduction to him, and I'll end it like this other reviewer whom you may know. If you always remember what Paul said, the Gospel of Paul, death is a gang boss. So I'll end with that. I'll see you later.